Hello and welcome to our web chat, where Adam Gordon is going to be telling us how to create a treasury talent pipeline. Adam is CEO and co-founder at Candidate.ID. We previously had a web chat with you on how to use LinkedIn and social networks. Okay, so what's changed? Why have you changed the business model?
So when I started in recruitment back in 1999, recruitment content, should we call it, which was really just an advert in a newspaper or a trade magazine, could make candidates aware about an opportunity or aware of an employer. From then, they needed to go through the education, consideration, and application process in conjunction with a recruiter. So that's great for recruiters because candidates were making themselves known at a very early stage in the process, and it meant that recruiters could influence candidates at an early stage in the process.
Okay, so we're well aware of how the old system worked. What has changed?
So when I started in recruitment in 1999, candidates could become aware of opportunities through, let's call it advertising in newspapers or on magazines. But then candidates needed to talk to a recruiter at an early stage to go through the education phase, the consideration phase, and the application phase.
Is the education phase learning about the job? What is it?
Yeah, the education phase would be finding out a bit more about what is this company like to work for, who would I be working with, what's my career progression opportunity, what sort of salary do I get, and what are the other benefits in working there. But then the consideration phase is it's deeper research. It's show me some examples of people who have had a great career here. What do they think about it? What do the people that have left that business think about working there? So back in 1999, when I started in recruitment, candidates couldn't get any of that information without talking to recruiters. Now, however, there's an abundance of information and candidates can get all of that information and they can, on a self-directed basis, go through the awareness, the education, and the consideration phases. That means that they don't actually talk to a recruiter. They don't need to talk to a recruiter until they get to the application phase. And this is exactly the same way that we go about buying a house or a car or a holiday or some other kind of high value, high consideration kind of purchase, if you like. It's exactly the same emotional decision making as if you're going through, buying a new car, a new house, for example. And again,
so why is that change important?
There's been a big shift over the last 5, 6, maybe up to 10 years, really since the Great Recession. There's been a real shift in organizations attempting to do their own recruitment rather than relying on third-party services. Now, they believe that what we call direct sourcing is what that means. They believe that that's a kind of low-cost panacea and it's the ultimate way of doing things. But if they don't understand which people are in the awareness stage, the education stage, and the consideration stage, they're wasting a lot of their time because they're going online, they're going to find candidates, but over 80% of those candidates are actually not ready for a conversation. So LinkedIn tells us that 80% of people on LinkedIn are not in the market for a new job opportunity. So what they need to understand is who's at which phase. And if they can understand that, then that's great because it means that they don't need to spend waste their time talking to those candidates that are in the awareness stage because they're not ready. Probably not the people that are in the education stage because they're not ready. Once they come into the consideration phase and they've done all of that self-directed research, that's when they're probably going to be much more likely to say, yes, I do want to have a conversation. In that red shaded area on this particular graphic, we believe that that represents the 3 to 4% of candidates who, within your total addressable market, who you would want to hire, who we believe are ready for a hiring conversation today with you. They've done all of that research themselves. They're ready for a conversation. They've done everything but apply. If the in-house recruiters recruiting treasury people who are notoriously difficult to recruit because there's more jobs than people available, if they understand who are the 3 to 4%, then they can stop wasting so much time in talking to people that are not ready and purely focus their time on talking to those who are ready. And incidentally, the most expensive thing in recruitment is human time. And so, I mean, if you can cut out human time from doing things that something else can do instead there's another way of doing it, then that creates a lot of real efficiency.
So what do employers have to do? How do they have to adapt to this new environment? Because quite clearly, the social media are having a huge impact, and only focusing on the 3 to 4% makes sense. But how do you do that?
So you really need to understand who's at the awareness, the education, the consideration stage. And the way you go about doing that is by nurturing all of the people within your database. Now, most large employers have a database, a candidate database, normally called an applicant tracking system. Now, the applicant tracking system is used for enabling internal workflow and for storing information. It's for the kind of taking candidates through the interview process, and then the onboarding process if they're successful, or the regret process if they're not successful at that stage. Now, most of the people on an applicant tracking system are people that employer may well want to hire in the future, may well want to interview in the future. So we believe it's important to constantly nurture all of that talent by sharing useful content with them in order to generate goodwill. So we've created this, what we believe is a helpful kind of nurture content map, which outlines some of the best channels and some of the best content suggestions for the different phases, for the awareness, education, and consideration phases. Now, most large employers, they do the consideration phase quite well. That's what I call the roll the red carpet out phase. That kind of content includes the job description, for example. Most large employers also do the education phase very well. In fact, they probably spend a disproportionate amount of their time on the education phase. Now, the education phase is summarized really by employer brand content, which is the content that a company would want to share about what it's like to work here. Now, in reality, it's only a very small proportion of people that are at that phase because, as I mentioned, 80% or more are no further than the awareness phase. They're not in the market. I estimate there's about 10% of the total addressable market that companies want to talk to about opportunities who are in the education phase, yet they really focus most of their creativity and their recruitment marketing on that phase. I believe it's vital for them to go well up the funnel from there and really start that nurturing process at the awareness phase. So that's for the people that are not currently interested in looking for opportunities. But if you can nurture them with things like how to be better at your job, new skills that you need to develop, industry insights, those kinds of things. If you can invite them along to no strings attached, just general networking kind of events, they're the sorts of things that those people will appreciate. And the general rule is if it's useful and relevant for them, or if it's going to help them get ahead in their career, share it with those people. Because what you can do is you can then faster bring them down the funnel into the education phase. So if you can do this at scale, then that's way beyond what individual human recruiters can do. And that means that those individual human recruiters could just really focus their expensive human time on the candidates that are at the consideration phase. So
tracking that must be, and initiating different activities throughout the funnel, as you call it, must be enormous. How do you do that?
So we automatically score. That's why we've created Candidate.ID. And Candidate.ID automatically scores each candidate's interaction with all of an employer's content. So all of their email opens, landing page views, link clicks, career site views, infographic views, video views, job description views. And using a balanced scorecard, it assigns points to each individual candidate based on what they're doing. So it tracks their journey. And by tracking their journey, that means that we're able to identify who's in the awareness stage, the education stage, and the consideration stage. Now, what it doesn't tell you is who is the best candidate for that job. What it does indicate is who is interested in talking to your organization about that job right now. However, if you make sure that you're only nurturing those people who have got the right kind of job titles, working for the right organizations, working in the right locations, then most of them are on paper or maybe in pixels, they are suitable people that you would want to interview.
What's the reaction to something like this? Because in some ways it's sort of scary, but on the other hand, it's obviously sensible as well. How do you manage that balance?
So our clients, as in the employers, sometimes their initial reaction is, this is a little bit scary because all this stuff that can get tracked and all this information that you can get on people. But then when they realize actually you're not tracking them onto Tesco.com or their bank or anything like that, you're just monitoring, what stage of interest have they got in terms of an opportunity with your organization. And once they understand that actually this kind of technology and this kind of approach is reasonably common on the sales and marketing side, they start to understand, fine, this is quite acceptable. Now, from the candidate's perspective, they don't immediately know that all of their interactions are being tracked, if you like, but they certainly have all of the emails they receive are subject to unsubscribes. All of the landing pages that they look at are subject to the cookie notifications. So they are. So it's all compliant. It's all completely compliant, and it's new. It is new, absolutely. It's certainly new in recruitment, but it's a very effective way of going about understanding who you need to be talking to, and so our clients they get over that initial sort of nervousness around, is this maybe ethically grey? They get over that pretty quickly when they realize actually the benefits they get are a reduction of 40% in time to shortlist, which therefore is a significant reduction in cost to get to shortlist as well. Now, something else I should mention, which I haven't yet, is because we're able to understand what content each individual is interested in, plus when they like to receive that content, what channels they like to receive it on, what content formats they prefer, that means that we're absolutely able to serve up a really personalized nurture experience for them. So if, for example, they're only interested in skills, what skills do I need to get ahead as a treasury professional? Then great, Candidate.ID will automatically recognize that and will continue to serve them that type of content. And it won't send them job descriptions if they don't look like they're anywhere close to being interested in a move. So it's really good kind of opportunity to personalize that nurture experience for candidates.
In terms of charges and costs and savings, what's the overall impact? You mentioned reducing the time to interview by 40%, but what's the overall impact? Are there any more statistics on this?
Yeah, it's going to be different for every organization, but for an average, if you're working with a recruitment agency, for example, the average fee for an experienced treasury candidate in London is going to be £15,000. The average spend our clients are making with Candidate.ID on a monthly basis is more like £4,000. So obviously they only need to hire one person every 3 months through this route for it to have really paid off. And our clients are hiring a lot more than that. But it varies from organization to organization, what metrics they're really wanting to focus on. Cost per hire was the important one. Time to hire is a much more important metric, I think, now for most organizations. And from our experience, as I mentioned, we can evidence a reduction of 40%.
Okay, the other key ingredient, obviously, is the quality and the talent that you're recruiting. Is there any evidence from Candidate.ID of how this has changed?
Yeah, I don't have any evidence to support that at this stage. So the theory is that if you're able to offer a more personalized nurture journey, it means you're going to be bringing more people down the pipeline, which means you're going to have more choice whenever the vacancy arises. Now, we've been in the market since September, so we're 11 months in, and we don't have any evidence yet of increased quality of hire or increased quality of shortlist. We've got some anecdotal evidence, which is from our clients who are telling us that they're getting more choice But quality of hire is something that's very difficult to measure. Somebody, the CEO of a very large FTSE 100 retail business, told me about 6 months ago that her definition was time to performance was the definition of quality. So if they're performing at 100% capacity within 3 months, then that's a really good hire. If they're taking more than 6 months, that's a really bad hire. But everybody's got a different kind of measurement of what quality of hire looks like.
And everybody has their own definition of what is quality and so on.
Of course.
So looking at the overall impact of the new platform, what do you think it's going to have on the recruitment business? Is it going to change dramatically, or is this just a natural progression in what we've started many years ago now?
The recruitment industry is going through massive changes, and it has been for probably about 10 years. However, that is, in fact, more than that, probably more like 15 years. However, that is behind other industries. So industries like marketing, finance, various other industries have all moved faster than the recruitment industry has in terms of adopting technology. We, for example, as I say, our talent pipeline platform is the first of its kind that we know of in the recruitment world globally. However, this kind of technology has been used. It's not like 50% market adoption. It's, I think, 14% market adoption within the sales and marketing world. And it's only the most sophisticated organizations that run this kind of technology. But we're quite far behind in terms of recruitment. Now, to answer the question about, how is it going to change recruitment? I think we are part of a movement. Candidate.ID, we are not on our own going to change the recruitment industry. It's a hundreds of billions of value industry. It's ginormous. But we're part of a movement, I think, of organizations who are taking recruitment into a more marketing-focused kind of approach. And marketing can control 3/4 of the talent pipeline in a way that when I started in recruitment in 1999, it couldn't do that. It was very limited in terms of what kind of marketing you could do. So I think that the human involvement in recruitment is now right at the end of the pipeline. It's probably shuffled up to probably the last quarter of the candidate's journey. And the first 3/4 of the candidate journey can be done through marketing and marketing technology, whereas in the past that couldn't be done. Now, we're moving into a world where there's technologies that are more sophisticated than ours, which are starting to surface in recruitment. And I'm really looking forward to finding out how artificial intelligence and a number of other new kind of categories of software impact on recruitment. And absolutely, there is already a machine learning aspect to Candidate.ID, but I can't wait to establish how we're going to make more use of these kind of technologies to continue to help employers become more effective at doing their own recruitment.
Thank you. That was fascinating and scary at the same time, and really exciting too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for having me, Jack.